Hello lovely people, welcome back to Fixing Rusty Stuff, where I fix it till it's broken and then try and fix it again. I do not profess to have any knowledge, qualifications, skills or experience in anything I do in these videos, and they should be taken purely for entertainment purposes. Well, I'm sure all six of you are absolutely desperate to see the progress on the old hobbit hole at the bottom of my garden. You're in luck, because like Louis Theroux visiting a whorehouse, I've documented the whole process. If you've been following along or just enjoying my ineptitude from afar, you will remember that in my last video, link in the description of course, I installed a waterproof membrane on the roof and external plywood on the walls. I had finally achieved dryness, I believe was the term, and not something I'd normally boast about, believe you me. Now, dryness is a vague term because plywood won't last for any extended period of time when exposed to the elements. So to maintain this rare state of dryness, I had to waterproof the plywood, which is exactly what this clip shows. Now, as with the roof, I incorrectly used staples to secure the membrane to the outer ply. Securing the membrane to the wall of my neighbour's fence wasn't as tricky as getting the cladding onto that side, but it did require a few unauthorised trips into their garden. Luckily, they're on holiday for 2 weeks, so let's see if I can finish that wall before they return. I overlapped the membrane by about 150mm, trying not to adhere to the mark they helpfully printed. I went around a second and a third time until the whole structure was wrapped up like an aqua-resistant Christmas present. Who's going to take a guess at the IP rating? On the EH indicator, I'd say we're at about an 8 now. My man cave is so well wrapped that it's basically wearing a shed condom. I'm sure the female sheds of the neighbourhood will be very pleased. I set up a little work area by the windowless window as I haven't got any power yet and I do need a little bit of light to see what I'm doing. The workbench was built by an old chap who lived here before, and I found it in the old shed I dismantled back in episode 1. Go and have a watch, LITD of course. Obviously, I'll need a bench far more manly and substantial in the long term, but it will do for now. So I'd been scouring Facebook Marketplace for some pristine condition anthracite grey PVC sliding doors for as close to 20 quid as possible. But I was surprised to learn that they're not that common and they ain't that cheap. So after missing out on a couple of good deals, I settled for a wooden window, no glass, for a tenner, and a set of wooden double glazed French doors for 30 quid, negotiated down. So I'll need glass for the window and a frame for the door, so probably not the most cost effective solution. Let's start with the window. As you can see, the listing said hardwood window thought to be mahogany. Now I reckon that's a bit preposterous. Judging by the weight, I'd be surprised if it was hardwood at all, but surely not mahogany. Anyway, haggled for a tenner, it was destined to be absorbed into the cave. Now, apart from being decorated with a white gift from our avian friends, it had quite a lot of other debris ingrained. I presume it had been sitting outside and it looked old but unused. A window equivalent of me, you might suggest, but in slightly better condition. I gave it a once over with a not particularly clean brush and it looked grateful for the attention. Once cleaned, I removed the vents, the window, the latch, the hinges, the lock, the latch lock, the handles, and all the other bits and bobs. The head of one screw snapped and I had to manhandle another, but everything came off in the end. I sanded down the window before throwing on the paint like a monkey playing with his own excrement, with a few mishaps thrown in for good measure. I am at risk of overdoing the grey a bit here, as the cladding and the roof will also be grey. But as Screwfix sorted me out 9 litres of their finest Ronseal shed and fence mistake hider, I'm saving on the paint, so why not? The hinges had less movement than a dead slot, so I drenched them in WD-40 and gave them a bit of a workout. That was the extent of the work on the hinges. I may spend some time shining them up at a later date if they overly detract from the shed's aesthetic perfection once finished. Once I perfectly matched the colour of the window to the English summer sky, I used my electrical screw rotator to reattach the vents and WD flooded hinges. The bits and bobs had flaking paint and were an horrible colour anyway, so I removed the flaking paint and gave them a basic sanding ready for a spray up. I am not painting the Mona Lisa here, people. I'm spraying a door handle and a latch, so don't be expecting all the fancy sanding with different grade papers. This is more of a how not to kind of channel. I lassoed the window bits and bobs with a bit of electrical cable and strung them up from the unfinished ceiling of the cave. I sprayed them black with some cheap spray paint from Screwfix and assessed the bodge once dry. I think you'll agree, they by no means look fresh from factory, but it was well worth the £5 I spent on spray paint. While the window dried, I applied some self-adhesive flashing around the bottom and sides of the window opening. The fit of the window frame into the opening was tighter than a duck's arse. I mean, you could barely pry the hair of a gnat's in between. I guess that just means no need for spacers. I screwed it into place through the 4x2s abreast using 70mm wood screws, and I'll fill in the gaps of expanding foam later. Once the window was in and the bits and bobs were dry, I had no trouble at all whacking them back on the window. They went on very easily. Hold on, what the? I was meant to edit this bit out. I'll just stop. Cut VT, damn it. Alright, I had a little bit of trouble getting them on. Anyway, with shiny new screws it don't look too bad. Behold the glassless window and feel free to comment on all the mistakes. And now, time for a brief intermission and a video of a man blowtorching the road. Onto the door frame. When I built the structure, I didn't know what size doors I'd end up with, so I just screwed a single 4x2 each side of an opening approximately 1.3 metres wide. After I'd diligently done the door deal, I knew what size frame was required, so onto Google search I ventured. I found very few online shops that had an external frame with sill at the exact size I needed, so I ended up ordering an hardwood frame for a whopping £150, delivery included. I could, and probably should, have gone to the local wholesaler and got a custom size made up for less than that, and even less if it was softwood. But where's the fun in ruining a cheap door frame? The general rule of thumb is that the more expensive it is, the more fun it is to break. Knowing the required opening dimensions, I cut the 4x2 frame into what I considered to be the appropriate size and doubled up on the 4x2s for extra stability. In retrospect, it could have been a bit bigger, but what's life without a few challenges? I nipped off the ends of the sill and the header and laid the door frame out on the floor. Sticky white slime, also referred to as PVA, was generously massaged into the joints to glue them together. When this dries, it will be a stronger joint than you'll find in any Amsterdam coffee shop. I used the framing square to get the corners as close to 490 degrees as possible before attaching some temporary battens. Well, one batten and a random piece of ply. This was an attempt to prevent movement during installation. I pulled it up into the opening, trying to ensure it was level, and secured it in by drilling a few countersunk pilot holes and plunging 80mm wood screws into the newly created cavities. As you can tell, this time spacers were needed, and the battens appear to be about as useful as an inflatable dartboard, as here is proof of plumb, well, almost plumb. I'm within the lines, so I call that a pass. Roll VT showing the finished article. I then removed the battens and did a little prayer that the doors would fit. Cleaning the doors up was a similar process to the window, but a bit more laborious on account of their size. I have now got the process down to a fine art. Step 1. Move dirt around with a grimy brush. Step 2. Drop fittings everywhere. Step 3. Rigorous hand sanding. No point saving time with an electric sander. Step 4. Drown hinges in water displacement 40th formula lubricant and exercise vigorously. Step 5. Hold on, 1 minute. That's better. Step 5. Clean bits and bobs. Well, try to clean bits and bobs. I say try, because my Dremel broke after about 5 minutes of using it. Side note on the Dremel. After owning the Dremel 3000 for almost exactly a year, one day it suddenly decided to stop working. It had been well used, but you would definitely expect it to last longer than that. After checking the fuse for continuity and finding the brushes with plenty of wear, I discovered that Dremel have a 2-year warranty. So instead of tearing it apart and fixing it, till it's, well, more broken, I contacted Dremel with proof of purchase. They very kindly collected the Dremel, and once investigating the problem and discovering a catastrophic failure, they kindly sent me a new one. Being the nosy bugger that I am, and wondering how I could fix it once out of warranty, I emailed their service department and asked them what the problem was. Amazingly, they got back to me with the vague but slightly helpful answer of the machine had failed to a faulty coil/stator. I'm thinking it may be the problem that this guy is fixing. Link in the description, of course. I am very disappointed with Dremel. This replacement they sent is barely used. It's even worse if it's failed on the same fault. That would make it a manufacturing defect. I am yet to decide whether I will attempt to fix this or send it back, as I think I am still within the 2-year warranty from original date of purchase. So, back to the doors. As the Dremel broke, I didn't manage to get the brass bits and bobs jeweler's grade shiny, as I couldn't get my bodged together homemade polishing wheel in the nooks and crannies of the brass. It did get them shiny, but it also got them pretty hot. Once I'd shined up the brass as best I could, and tarted up the doors with my new favourite colour, I hacked away at the cutout for the door hinges. I would normally use my Dremel with a router attachment for this, but, well, obviously that's not an option now, is it? This next clip is a testament to the old adage, measure twice, cut once. Or maybe, measure twice, cut in the right place once is a bit more suitable. Let's see if you can notice the tiny mistake. It's not very noticeable, but let's see if you can spot it. Yeah, I know. I obviously measured to the bottom of the hinge, but cut it out to the top of the hinge once transferred to the frame. This is what I call an RBE. For those that don't know, that means a run-based error. A run-based error is a mistake so stupid and easy to avoid that it can only have been induced by the intoxication of rum. I make them frequently. In fact, in the spirit of full disclosure, there were one or two other mistakes made along the way. Now these may or may not have been run based. I am not at liberty to say in fear of self-incrimination, but here they are. Bonus error 1. One of the doors was dropped and the corner joint popped out, so it had to be glued and clamped. Bonus error number 2. Not only did I completely cut one hinge in the wrong place, but I made an absolute dog's ear of another. Bonus error number 3. This is probably related to the door frame being not quite plumb. But while the doors do indeed shut and lock okay, there is a massive gap at the bottom, which will also need rectifying. At this rate, the snag list will be bigger than the build list. Okay, that's quite enough errors for one day. As you can see, I did eventually manage to get the window and the doors in. But the glaringly obvious mistakes will go on a snag list to be fixed at the end of the build, and I'll pretend the ones that ain't glaringly obvious didn't happen. I'm sure you won't tell anyone. The hideous hinge error can't exactly be hidden, but I may wait till the old Dremel 3000 with router attachment is back in the game. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is episode 3, Old Shed to Man Cave, waterproof membrane, windows and doors. If you found that mildly entertaining, please do hammer the like button for me, subscribe to the channel, share it with your dad, and stay tuned for the next episode of Fixing Rusty Stuff.